News for a few years, and it's only been in the last month or so he's surfaced from whatever rock it is he's been hiding under. So Tony Blair indicates he may challenge Chilcot report findings. Tony Blair has refused to say whether he will accept the verdict of the Chilcot report into the Iraq War when it is released in July. The former Labour Prime Minister said he will have to wait until reading the full findings before reacting, fueling speculation he may challenge some of the central claims. Mr. Blair has seen sections of the report referring to himself as part of the so-called Maxwellisation process that allows those criticised to respond before publication. However, he said during an appearance on BBC One's Andrew Marr show that he will wait to see the Iraqi inquiry's full findings before accepting the conclusions. Mr. Blair was also accused of rewriting history as he denied ever supporting Britain during the Euro when he was Prime Minister. The former Labour leader said the economic case for joining the single currency had been, quote, ambiguous, end quote, noting it was never put to the British people formally. He said he was, quote, sensitive, end quote, to concerns about immigration, but warned leaving the EU would not help bring down numbers. He also defended his money-making after leaving office against accusation he had become rich and detached by saying 80% of his work is done for free.
Many of your friends, people who are close to you and have supported you all the way through, feel that you have become just too rich and too disconnected over the last few years. Yeah. And in the words of somebody, you have trashed the brand. What do you say to them?
What I say to that is, if you're reading stuff in the press about what I do nowadays, don't read it or believe it. Go and look at my website and you see what I actually do. Yeah. I spend 80% of my time on unpaid work. I've just literally spent weeks in the Middle East, on the Middle East peace process there. Yeah. I have 2 foundations. I employ around about 200 people. I have to raise the money and make the money for all of them. Oh, well what we actually do is very good and exciting work around the world, but you won't read a bit of it here. So if you want to know what I do, go and read the facts.
Yeah. Tony Blair, thank you very much.
Full of shit. Sir John Chilcot's long-delayed report into the invasion of Iraq in 2003 is due to be published on July the 6th, less than a fortnight after the EU referendum. And it's amazing that if you just look at that exact statement there, long-delayed report. Well, why has it been a long-delayed report? Well, that's pretty obvious, and it's quite ironic that it's not coming out until after the Brexit vote. Now, would you put 2 and 2 together and think, well, maybe the reason this report is not coming out is because it's going to impact on people's views about how this political system really operates behind closed doors? At the moment, the UK is being swamped with propaganda. Absolutely swamped. And when this report comes out, I'd imagine there's going to be quite a lot of truth about all the backroom deals, all the illegal activities that Tony Blair got up to. So we're just going to have to wait to see for that one to come through. There have been allegations Mr. Blair agreed in principle to back America if it chose to invade a year before the decision was taken in public. Mr. Blair replied, quote, I think when you go back and look at what was said, I don't think anyone can seriously dispute that I was making it very clear what my position was, end quote. The Telegraph revealed recently that Tony Blair will not be accused of breaking any laws over Iraq in the Chilcot report. Well, to me then that sounds like the Chilcot report is just going to be worthless. So much information will be withheld. Why doesn't that surprise me? Okay guys, I'm going to get ready to hit play on this one and get ready for the heartstrings of Mr. Blair. And if you listen really carefully in the background, I will be playing the world's smallest violin for him.
I had to take this decision as Prime Minister, and it was a huge responsibility then, and there's not a single day that passes by that I don't reflect and think about that.
Bullshit. Blair claims that there was no way of avoiding invading Iraq.
I think the beginning of the track that led towards regime change was straight after September the 11th. It became clear that Saddam had not changed but was carrying on in the same way. I think it would have been...
Psychologists say smiles equal lies.
Profoundly wrong of us to have gone back to the Americans and said, I know we said that we would be with you in handling this, but now we're not.
He was always committed to handling Iraq with the US.
I don't think it was a great secret that I was right alongside America after September the 11th and continue to be. Said, I know we said that we would be with you in handling this, but now we're not.
He was always committed to handling Iraq with the US.
I don't think it was a great secret that I was right alongside America after September the 11th and continue to be. So what I was saying to him is, I'm going to be with you in handling it this way, right? I'm not going to push you down this path and then back out when it gets too hot politically, because it is going to get hot politically. For me, very, very much so.
The cabinet was aware of the build-up of the war.
It really does defy common sense and logic, let alone the discussion, to think that there were people in the cabinet who didn't know what was... that we were on a course where the principles of it were absolutely clear. Go down the UN route, get an ultimatum. If he fails to meet the ultimatum, we're going to be with America in military action.
He disregarded the legal advice given.
Did you understand at the time that your words about an unreasonable veto were inconsistent with the legal advice?
I was making basically a political point. However, I accept entirely that there was an inconsistency between what he was saying and what I was saying there, but I was saying it not in a sense as a lawyer, but politically.
He has regrets over the Iraqi war. I think his only regrets will be sitting where he is now.
I regret deeply and profoundly the loss of life, whether from our own armed forces, those of other nations, the civilians who help people in Iraq, or the Iraqis themselves. And I just wanted to say that because I think it is right to say it, and it's what I feel.
Well, it goes without saying, these political people, these power players, have absolutely no regard for people's lives. That's why they make the decisions they make. That's why they push us to war. That's why they take backhanders. That's why they sell out nations, regardless of the individual people that are going to suffer on the tail end of those deals. Absolute disgrace. Moving on. Britain is the most corrupt country on earth, says Mafia expert Roberto Salvano. And he is an Italian anti-mafia writer. So this is quite a good one. He has spent more than a decade exposing the murderous criminal underworld of the Italian mafia, but journalist Roberto Salvano believes that Britain is the most corrupt country in the world. The author of international bestseller Gomorrah and 000, he lived under police protection since publicly denouncing members of the Camorra, a powerful Neapolitan organised crime syndicate, in 2006. On Saturday, he made a rare historic appearance at the Hay Literary Festival, flanked by several security guards. He warned the audience in Hayon Way the financial institutions were allowing, quote, criminal capitalism, unquote, to thrive through offshore holdings, and he warned that the vote to leave the European Union would leave Britain even more exposed to the organised crime. Quote, if I asked you what is the most corrupt place on earth, you might tell me it's Afghanistan, maybe Greece, Nigeria, the south of Italy, and I will tell you it's the UK, end quote, he said. Quote, it's not the bureaucracy, it's not the police, it's not the politics, but what is corrupt is the financial capital. 90% of the owners of capital in London have their headquarters offshore. Quote, Jersey and the Caymans are the access gates to criminal capital in Europe, and the UK is the country that allows it. That is why it is important, why it is so crucial for me to be here today and talk to you, because I want to tell you this is about you, this is about your life, this is about your government. Quote, leaving the EU means allowing this to take place. It means allowing the Qatari societies, the Mexican cartels, the Russian mafia to gain even more power, and the HSBC has paid €2 billion in fines to the US government because it confessed that it had laundered money coming from the cartels and the Iranian companies. We have proof, we have evidence, end quote. And it's amazing how all these stories are coming out that are interlinking and intertwining between the two factions that are going on pretty much in Europe and almost globally. I mean, you can take America into globally with this, because everybody is either pushing for a stay vote or a leave vote, because this actually will impact so much in the world, because Britain holds quite a large key stake in the strength of the Eurozone. Now, the impact with either an in or out vote will have impacts. And as we're all aware, every bank in the UK has now finalised its bail-in structures. The whole of Europe has now finalised its bail-in structures. Segments of Europe are now entering into negative interest rates. The World Board is currently, it's at a change state. Now, I'm not quite sure what this guy is coming out and talking about this for, because my initial gut feeling of this story is he's voting for Remain and trying to persuade the Remain. But if he's come out against corruption, and if he's come out against mafias, and he's under, quote, police protection, well, we know the police are not exactly the most law-abiding of people. They generally take law into their own hands, and not only that, people at certain levels in society are above the law. And I wonder if this guy is actually an insider right from the off, an undercover agent who infiltrated some of these Italian gangs. Anyway, I'll carry on. Saviano first started writing about organised crime in Italy in the early 2000s, following the death of his local priest, who had written an essay criticising the dealings of the Camorra. After publishing Camorra, a non-fiction novel which named members of the clan and exposed its business connections and criminal activity, his life was threatened and a plot put in place to eliminate him and his police escorts with a bomb. The death threats led to public outcry from fellow writers, including 6 Nobel laureates, including Desmond Tutu, Mikhail Gorbachev, and Orphan Pamuk, who warned the Camorra were becoming a threat to organised security and public order. Signatures were also collected on the website of the Italian newspaper La Repubblica, calling for the government to protect him. Saviano said, quote, I was 26 years old when I got myself into this situation, and I could not imagine that it would end like this, because many books have been written on the Mafia, but it was my book that made them so angry. Quote, I was telling real facts, I was naming names, my life was unique. I am followed by 2 bulletproof cars and by more than 5 officers, and that brings about a feeling of guilt, sometimes because you exposed yourself too much. You were not cautious enough. But the freedom of expression that you enjoy is not to be taken for granted, and there's always somebody who fights for it. And the story just goes on to just talk a little bit about how he got into this situation of writing books about the Mafia, which isn't really a topic that I'm interested in covering here for this UK stretch. So on to the next one.